wouldn't that just be the worst if I did this whole koreadathon vlog and I didn't learn how to pronounce the Korean names? That would be really embarrassing. So I'm gonna look those up right now. I was like, shut up, I'm in the middle of speaking. Hey besties, it's Sarah. Welcome back to my channel, and today I'm bringing to you my vlog for koreadathon. Koreadathon is a readathon. You see what they did there with the pun? Monica and Chloe created this readathon to get people talking more about Korean books, whether that be books directly translated from Korean or books by Korean authors who live in other countries. So I thought I would participate. I think they've done it once before and I didn't participate that time. And I saw Chloe and Monica post their announcement videos and I was just like, you know what? I'm gonna hop on that bandwagon. I want to read more diversely, read more widely with the types of authors I'm taking in, and I feel like it's just really good to have a moment where you are more specific with your TBR so that you can achieve those goals. And so yeah, I just thought I would participate. It goes Monday, March 7th through Sunday the 13th. So today is Wednesday the 9th, and so it's already been going on for a couple of days and I've already finished a book. So we'll talk about that in a second. I've just been filming like a million vlogs at once. Like I am currently making over my office as well as doing another like secret TBR like challenge video. So I just have a lot of things going right now. So I just didn't have a chance to film the last few days, but we're gonna get into it now. So I want to share my TBR before I share about the book that I just read. So let's get down to that. I'll share the challenges and I'll let you know what I've been reading / what I'm going to read, because that's what a TBR is. So the first challenge is to read a book translated from Korean, and for that I chose The Good Son by you-jeong, translated by you-jeong Kim. I chose this one because it's a thriller, and that is obviously one of my favorite genres, and I kind of realized that I've never read a thriller that was translated from another language, so I thought that would be a really interesting moment. And spoiler alert, this is the one that I already read, so we will be talking about my thoughts very soon. The next challenge is to read a manhwa or a webtoon or graphic novel, and for this I decided to mix it up. Okay, so I recently got into my Nintendo Switch, and if you have a Switch, you will know that there's these types of games called visual novels, which basically is like you play through a story, and so the gameplay is all about just like making choices and like reading what's on screen. And I thought it'd be really fun if I found a Korean visual novel thing for my Switch instead of like reading a comic, because that's not really like my thing. I used to read manhwas like when I was in high school. I read a lot of manga and manhwas, like I read a little bit of both. So I think I might play this game called Buried Stars. I still need to buy it. It's like $45, so I kept going back and forth because I'm an indie game bitch, and so I'm used to spending like under like $15 on a game. So when a game was like $45, I was like, But I think for this vlog, I do want to play it, and I watched a bunch of reviews and people said it was really good. Basically, it is this Korean game about like a singing competition, and I think there's like a murder that happens in it, and so like you spend the game trying to figure out who did the murder. Anyway, I thought that would be like a fun take on this challenge, so I probably will buy that and play that maybe later this week. I don't really have a lot of time the next couple of days, so maybe I might be able to do that on like Saturday or Sunday, but we'll come back to that challenge. And then the next challenge is to read a historical fiction novel, and for that I'm going to read The Red Palace by June-Her. I don't know much about this. I just know that it was on Monica's TBR and she has recommended June-Her to me multiple times, like as an author. But I think there's a murder that happened, so it's like a historical murder mystery. I don't know, I feel like I'm sensing a theme on this like TBR situation where I'm doing a lot of stuff that's involving thrillers and murder. So the next two challenges I decided to combine, and that is read an award-winning Korean novel and then read a book featuring a Korean diaspora character. And for this I chose Crying in H Mart by Michelle Zauner. This is the 2021 Goodreads Choice Award winner for memoirs, so that's where I got the award-winning part. I don't know if the Goodreads awards are that prestigious, but it did win an award technically, and technically Michelle Zauner is a real person because it's a memoir, but she is a diaspora person because she's living in the US. Like she's a half Korean famous person living here who wrote a memoir, and I've heard really good things about Crying in H Mart, so I really look forward to reading it. So the final challenge, I decided to also use Michelle Zauner because it is read a book recommended by a Korean celebrity, and she technically is a celebrity because she's like the lead singer of a famous band. I could have gone with like an idol from a K-pop group, but I'm not really into K-pop, and I know like I could look it up, but I already was gonna read a book by Michelle, so I was like, why not go with something recommended by her? Because like when I was looking into her as a person, I did find an article where she recommended a bunch of books, and it was really interesting because she recommended a bunch of different types of books, but one Korean specific book that she recommended was The Vegetarian by Kang. On top of the reading challenges, Monica and Chloe also made life challenges to like do throughout the week during the readathon, and so the first one of those is to cook a Korean meal or dish. To be honest, I just moved and my kitchen stuff is kind of a mess, and I did bookmark some recipes thinking that I would already have my kitchen set up to cook, but I might just go get Korean food and like get takeout this week, so stay tuned on that if I end up cooking or if I end up just going to get food. And then the next life challenge is to support a Korean creator, and I would say that if I'm going to spend $45 on a game from Korea for Buried Stars, that would be supporting a Korean creator. But if you want to subscribe to another Korean booktuber, like if you're already subscribed to Monica and Chloe and you're looking for more, then I would recommend Sunny Kim. But yeah, I really like her vibe. She is Canadian, and I think she is in university, so she's pretty young. She's got like a vivacious spirit. I like how she references memes in her videos, and she's just really fun. So I would recommend going and checking her out. So that would be my recommendation if you're looking for a Korean booktuber. So that is it for my TBR and like what I'm gonna be doing this week. Again, today is Wednesday and this ends on Sunday, so I've got a lot to do. I've got a lot to read. I've got a lot to take in. I also have a lot of work to do, like just in my day job, as well as a lot of like moving stuff because I just moved and I need to unpack. But I'm really hopeful that I can combine some of the things I need to do with reading, like listening to audiobooks like while I'm working or while I'm unpacking. Let's talk about The Good Son. So I read that book the last 3 days and I finished it, and I really liked it. I think I'm going to give it 4 stars. So basically The Good Son is a thriller about this guy, you-jeong, who wakes up covered in blood. And something you learn about him very early on is that he takes some sort of medication that he doesn't like because it gives him headaches and it makes his ears get tinnitus, and it's just like kind of a bad experience on this medicine. It just makes him really sick. So every once in a while he likes to go off of his medicine, and when he goes off of his medicine, he's like in danger of having seizures and memory loss. And so basically he wakes up after an episode where he has lost his memory and he's covered in blood, and he goes downstairs and he finds the dead body of his mother. And so he kind of has to figure out, like, did he kill her? Did someone else kill her? And what I really loved about this book is that you-jeong is not a reliable narrator. It reminded me a lot of You, not because like he's like Joe Goldberg, but because of the way he's telling the story from his perspective. Like he's just not a reliable narrator, and he thinks very highly of himself, and you can find him often judging people for things that he also like just did, and things kind of devolve from there. I don't think it's a huge spoiler to say that like he's not a good person. That's another way that he reminds me of Joe from You. Another really interesting thing about this book is that it's kind of a character study of you-jeong, because he's telling you from his perspective like what he remembers from the night, like as he's trying to figure out what happened to his mom. But he also delves a lot into the strained relationship between him and his mother, because she's been very overprotective his whole life because he is 25, but she always makes sure he's taking his medication. She doesn't let him go out. He has a curfew. She's just really controlling. And so it's very interesting to start the book out like kind of thinking his mom's not like the best person, and then learning more about you-jeong and realizing that the roles are not quite what you think they are. And it's just really dark, and I really liked that. Those are my favorite kind of thrillers, the ones that just like make you go like, this person's kind of fucked up. But yeah, I would really highly recommend it. I really want to read more from this author. I looked it up, and I think he only has one other book that's translated, but I probably will read it because I really liked this. He has written many books, but there's just only 2 of his books have been translated. So looking forward to if they translate more of his books in the future. But anyway, it's now 5:23 since I've been updating you, and I might just finish my work for the day. I feel like I don't really work like normal 9 to 5 hours because I work from home, and so I didn't start working on this stuff until like probably like 1:30. And so even though it's after 5, I want to keep going, but I am going to a pole class tonight. Now that I've moved, I live a lot closer to one of the pole studios that I used to go to all the time before the pandemic. So I'm probably gonna go get my pole stuff together and then go do that. I will listen to koreadathon Mart while I'm driving there. It probably will take me like 30-35 minutes to get there just because of traffic. The class is at 6:30, so I probably need to get ready to go really soon. Okay, so I just got out of my pole class. Very awkward to be talking to my camera in the parking lot right now because some of the other girls can see me. But it's fine, it's fine. Also, I've started crying in H Mart. I listened to it on the way over here. It was probably like a 30-minute drive, so I got into it a little bit. And I really, really like it so far. Basically, Michelle Zauner wrote this memoir. It's really about her mother. It's not really about her life. It's about her relationship with her mother and their shared love of Korean food, as well as like how their relationship was growing up, and just sort of details about her life through the lens of that. And I really have been enjoying it so far. I already cried once because it's just really sad. Like, her mother passed away from cancer, and I'm really close with my mom, and it's so sad. What I really like though is that her relationship with her mother is very complex. So even though she spends the first chapter like just talking about how great her mother was and how much they enjoyed eating Korean food together, and she describes so many foods in like great detail, it like literally I'm salivating thinking about it. Like, I just want to go eat Korean food like immediately. She also talks in the second chapter about some of the like hardships of her relationship with her mother, and how her mother was really hard to please, and how she had to work really hard to get her mother's approval, and eating Korean food with her mother and having a really refined palate as a child is how she got her mother's respect and approval. And so that's really interesting. So I'm really liking it, and I like the writing style so far, and I think Michelle Zauner is also doing a really good job audioing the audiobook narrating the audiobook. I think I actually might go to H Mart right now. I think it's like 7:45 right now, and I think they close at 9, and there is an H Mart about 2 miles from here, so I think I might go to H Mart and get some food and eat that for dinner. Feel like falling deeper. Colder nights 난 너무 싫어. 기다리기에는 너무 길어. 줬던 내 사랑이 식어. 기대만 하는 것도 나. I went to H Mart, and the food court inside actually ended up being closed. I didn't realize that even though the store was still open for an hour, that all like the restaurants inside would be closed. But in the same plaza as H Mart, there was a bunch of Korean restaurants, and so I just went to one randomly that was right there, and as you saw in the footage, I ended up eating some really good food. I had spicy cold buckwheat noodles, and I also had mung bean pancakes. The women who worked there were so funny because they kept coming up to me and asking me if I was okay and if I liked my food and if the spice level was all right, and they kept mixing my food, and then they would use the scissors to like cut the noodles. And they also eventually were like, hey, do you want a fork? And they brought me a fork. It was just so funny because listening to Crying in H Mart, one of the things that Michelle Zauner says is that her mom's favorite thing was to kind of tell her how to eat and like correct her and like use her chopsticks and kind of mix up her food for her. So I found it very funny that the women in this restaurant were doing that for me. I do think they were doing that for me because I was a white woman, because I feel like all the other people in there who were Korean, they were doing just fine, and the food was really good. I really enjoyed it. I've had kimchi pancakes before, but I've never had a mung bean pancake, and it was super delicious. I don't know, it was just a really good experience, and I really liked going to like a really authentic Korean restaurant. And I had a cute little time eating by myself. I don't do that super often, but I've done that a few times recently, and it just feels very like adult to just like go into a restaurant and eat alone. It could be also perceived as being lonely, but I don't know, I really enjoyed it. I thought it was nice, and I listened to Crying in H Mart while I was eating, and so it just kind of all like went together because she talks about food so much in that. But it also was really sad to be listening to it because she was kind of talking about her mother getting diagnosed with cancer. So a few things. I'm giving you this update on my porch. Hopefully the outdoor noises are more like ambiance than they are distracting. Literally a plane goes over when I say that. The other thing that I do want to point out is that I am wearing a Modelo shirt that I got from a local Mexican restaurant. One time Aaron and I were ordering from them on Grubhub, and in the list of items they had a t-shirt on their menu for $2, and we thought that was funny, so we ordered it because we were like, what could a t-shirt for $2 really be? And it was this Modelo shirt. So what I was trying to say about my reading though, let's get more into the important update, is that I finished Crying in H Mart, and as you saw last night, I was crying not in H Mart but in my living room. So, and that's the kind of book that if I think about the writing and what happens in that book for even a moment longer, like I can actually feel tears in my eyes right now. That was a really sad book, and obviously it's based on her real life, and it's just like the way that Michelle Zauner writes about grief. It's just like if you've lost a parent, what is with the planes flying over? As I was saying before I was so rudely interrupted, is that the way she writes about grief is so heartbreaking. And if you have lost a parent, I really want to give you a trigger warning for this book, because if that is a hardship or trauma that you have experienced, I think that that would be a really difficult book to read. But I really enjoyed it. I'm gonna give that, I think I'm gonna give it like 4.5 stars. Like it was really good, and her just writing style was really fantastic, which makes sense because she like writes music and stuff and she's very creative. But anyway, fascinating book, really liked it. And now I'm gonna be moving on to The Red Palace by June Hurt. I will say this is my first YA book in a really long time. I think the last time I read YA was when I read Cassandra Clare last year. Like YA is just not a category that I'm reading a lot of. I'm mostly reading adult these days. I really like the minute I honestly hear that a book is YA, I lose interest in it. That is no offense to anyone who likes YA or reads YA. I used to read like primarily YA, like I only started reading adult in the last few years, but I think I'm just like at an age where personally for me in my life and what I relate to and enjoy as a reader, I just prefer to read about adults. But it is older YA because the main character, it says that she's 18, and I think it's also kind of removed from that kind of teenage setting with it being in like 1758. So I'm just gonna let the fact that it's YA not deter me from reading it. Am I wearing the same Modella shirt that I was wearing yesterday and this like shacket that I wear literally like every single day? Yeah, I am. And I would really appreciate it if you didn't judge me. Today is Friday and I am almost done with The Red Palace. You know, what I feared has happened, besties. I don't really like it and I think it's because it's YA. There's nothing wrong with YA. I want to emphasize that. I know I keep giving that disclaimer, but I just don't want anyone to think that I'm trying to insult anyone's reading taste if they enjoy reading YA. I think for me, the writing style in YA tends to just not hit because it's written for teenagers and I'm a 30-year-old woman, and it's just for me and my like preferences, it's not really hitting. I've been a little bit frustrated with the main character. Like she's trying to solve this murder, but anytime someone corners her and asks her what she's doing, she immediately confesses to trying to do that, even though trying to solve this murder could get her killed. Like she keeps being like in her head like, I could die for this, my head will roll, and then her mom will be like, what have you been doing? And she's like researching the murder, like finding out what happened. And she just like isn't using all of her wits. I feel she's just, yeah, she's not using, it's not all working up here. So, and then there's a romance in it, and I really don't like when mysteries or thrillers have romance. Like it's just kind of random. I don't know, you can definitely tell that some things are historically accurate. Like I think she's got like the era going, everybody's like roles in this society are fleshed out. Like she, you know, she's telling us the historical accurateness, but the main character is just not really fitting in. She kind of reads like a modern character. I want to give this book 3 stars because I don't actually know why. I actually want to give it 2 stars. I do want to give it 2 stars. Like the writing is not bad. I feel like I'm just not the right audience for it. Okay, so what we're gonna do now is build some furniture. I have to build a shelf that's gonna go in my office. I have another vlog I've been filming this week of me getting my office ready, like painting my office, putting together furniture, doing a bunch of DIYs. Can I speak English? In the meantime, I have one more piece of furniture I need to build, but I already have so much content for that vlog. I figured I could build it in this vlog, and then it'd be like vlogception, where you get to see me build it here. And then when I post that video, I'll make a reference to this video being like, if you want to see me build this item, then go watch that vlog, and then vice versa. And now I'm telling you that if you're interested after seeing me build this, if you want to see my office thing, then look out for that next Sunday. You see? You see? You see? You see? We're thinking, and we're doing. Okay. How is that one step? I put it in the wrong slot. I did accidentally make a hole in the top. Okay, after much trial and error, we have finished. So I finished The Red Palace, and I am going to stick with the 2-star rating. I am so sorry. I really did not enjoy it. I just didn't like the writing. That's really what it comes down to, is I did not enjoy the writing. Like the setting was interesting, the fact that there was a murder mystery going on, that was interesting, but like the way that it was executed upon, no. I just don't think YA is for me. I think I'm gonna stick to my no YA except for Cassandra Clare rule that I have going, because it's like, I'm gonna give this book 2 stars, but I feel like it is partially because of who I am as a reader. So yeah, I really feel like if I read this when I was like 16 years old, I would have really enjoyed this. So today is Saturday, and I only have one more book that I need to read, and then I'm gonna play Buried Stars later to fit like the visual graphic novel challenge, like we talked about earlier in the vlog. The Vegetarian is only 2 hours and 37 minutes on audio when you listen to it in 2x speed, and I, as many of you know because I keep telling you, is that I recently moved and I need to put away all my clothes. As you can see, this isn't really working. It's giving messy. It's giving nothing has a place. And so I'm gonna put my clothes away, and I figured that this book being 2.5 hours basically would be a good timer for getting this task done. It's been a day since we last spoke. I just showed you the closet update. I didn't finish that. I also did not finish The Vegetarian. I listened to about an hour of the audiobook. I was really pushing through, really trying to like it and finish it. I just realized it wasn't for me and I should just DNF it because I already read The Red Palace and didn't really like it. I didn't really want to force myself to finish another book that I didn't like. At least with The Red Palace, I thought maybe the subject matter and like the murder mystery would like bring the plot up for me, and maybe it would end up being more like a 3 or 4 star. But unfortunately, it ended up being a 2 star, as you guys know. So with The Vegetarian, I knew from literally like the first paragraph that I wasn't really going to like it. I just am not made for weird books. 99.9% of weird books are not made for me, Sarah. It's very rare that something with a kind of like an outlandish concept or plot will really grab me and make me like it. I don't know. I don't know what that says about me. Maybe I'm boring, but I just wasn't feeling it. Essentially, the plot was that this woman is married and she randomly decides after having a dream that she doesn't want to eat meat anymore. And the perspective of the book is actually told from the point of view of her husband. And so he kind of just starts out the book like insulting his wife. Like, he talks about how average looking he thinks she is, how much he like doesn't even really like her, that they kind of just married out of convenience because it's like expected to be married, and that he just doesn't really enjoy her that much as a person. He thinks she's very bland. And so when she stops eating meat, it kind of incenses him because he expects her to just be like this plain Jane that like does his laundry and cooks for him. And so when she kind of decides that she wants to be a vegetarian, he thinks it's like the biggest affront that she could ever make towards him. Another thing that she does after she stops eating meat is she stops having sex with him because she says that he smells like meat, because she's just like really like against eating meat. There are like sections, like small chapters, where you do hear from her perspective, and her perspective is all about this dream that she had. It's very weird. Like, hers is more like hazy, like poetic, and so you can tell from her perspective that she has not liked her husband for a long time. And I wish I could be the kind of girly that could read this and get the meaning from it and be like, oh my god, so deep, like I love the weird metaphors, but like I just really was like, what is going on? It wasn't for me, and so I'm just not gonna force myself to do that. So I've DNF'd. But I did play a good like 30 to 40 minutes of Buried Stars last night, which is the visual novel Switch game that I mentioned earlier. I'm gonna go play a little bit more of a portion for you guys so you guys can see some of the gameplay, because I really do think it's interesting so far, and it definitely feels like it's bringing to life like a manhwa or like some sort of comic that's in Korean. Because it is a lot of reading. It's very reading heavy. So I definitely would recommend this if you have a Switch and you like visual novels, or if you've been wanting to try a visual novel. So I'll show you guys a little bit of the gameplay, and then from there, probably close out the vlog and we'll be done. That pretty much brings us to the end of this vlog. I think that I had a pretty successful reading week, especially with the first 2 books that I read. I absolutely loved both The Good Son and Crying in H Mart. I feel like both of those books were just really good. I really would recommend The Good Son if you like thrillers, and especially if you like thrillers with unreliable narrators. I really enjoyed that one, and I definitely look forward to reading more from that author, and maybe looking into more Korean thrillers in general. If you know of any, let me know. And then Crying in H Mart was just a really good memoir that made me feel a lot of emotions. I think Michelle Zauner just did like a really good job kind of showcasing her relationship with her mom that was complicated, but also describing a lot of really delicious Korean food. So I really like that, but I do want to give you the warning that you will cry like I did, as you saw. But yeah, I really enjoyed this week. I loved the Korean food that I ate. I loved just celebrating Korean literature and just having a good time. If you have any Korean books that you think that I would enjoy, please recommend them down below. And thank you all so much for watching. You're all beautiful. Have a nice day.